want to thank you and support this bill. The Honorable John Waweru.
Mr. Speaker, I must thank you. I must thank you profusely for giving me this opportunity. And secondly, I have to say that this is a very laudable effort by the Committee on Sports, Youth and Culture under the leadership of the Honorable Wanyama. Mr. Speaker, we are discussing about culture. And in this context, Mr. Speaker, we are actually going into the heart of a discussion for the fight of the soul of a people. Mr. Speaker, it has been said before that if you want to disenfranchise an individual, what you do is you deny them their mother tongue and you take their father's name. Because if you deny someone their mother tongue, everything that is housed in language, whether you call it belief, whether you call them their truth or their identity, it is housed in the language that they speak. In their father's name, an individual finds their identity. And to that extent, Mr. Speaker, then, the Swahili are very right when they tell us that mwachamila ni mtumwa.
The third reading of this
Mr. Speaker, this vessel that we are calling culture is the one, as I have said, that carries a people's identity, their history, their belief, and even their truth. From the culture I come from, Mr. Speaker, when you refer to your mother, you call her Maito. Maito, if you extrapolate the name, is two words. There is the word Ma and Ito. Ma means the truth. Ito means ours. So the name mother, in essence, means our truth. And that is why you find that in this patriarchal society, the Kikuyu culture is unable to thrive because by its very formation, the Kikuyu culture was not supposed to be a patriarchal culture. In fact, we all believe that we came from Mombi, the creator. And Mombi is the only name that humanity shares with God. It is the only word in our dictionary as the Kikuyu speaking people that a man shares a word, a name with God. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, sorry, Honorable Speaker, I have to say that the tragedy that we seek to remedy by having a bill that gives a framework for the protection of our culture has to do with us finding our way back. What in Gekoyo they would call Mokaro, making sure that the river gets back to its course. Because as we speak today, we have been knocked off our, what you would call our track of organic cultural development and civilization. And how it happened was very systematic, Mr. Speaker. The moment an individual showed up in our country carrying three very dangerous things, they were carrying on one hand a Bible, a gun, and education and what you would call government. And with that, they were able to rub off our cultures to the extent that today, Mr. Speaker, any individual who professes the Christian faith can give you the lineage of one Jesus Christ of Nazareth all the way back to his lineage to the house of David, all the way back to the house of Abraham and his son Isaac, and all the way back to the creation story Adam. And they can give you a chronology of who gave birth to who gave birth to who, and these are tens of generations. However, Mr. Speaker, even I myself would struggle to give my lineage beyond 7 generations. I might profess that I am Kiarie wa Waweru, Waweru wa Ngeve, Ngeve wa Geshi, Geshi wa Kangora. And then beyond that, Mr. Speaker, 7 generations down, then I get lost, Mr. Speaker. As such, Mr. Speaker, then, whatever it is that was housed in the language that I speak, it faces a great danger today. I might be the last of our people who will be able to speak the language that my father spoke and my mother spoke. To that extent, then, Mr. Speaker, the discussion this afternoon becomes extremely important when we juxtapose it with where the world is today. When we talk about the world today, two great things are affecting culture. One, globalization. Two, technology. And they're working hand in hand, Mr. Speaker. That today as we speak, there are large language models that are being developed using data that is scraped off the internet to form what you would call emerging technologies in artificial intelligence. But let us look at them, Mr. Speaker. The language models that we are speaking about today in the world of artificial intelligence and emerging technologies, of the data that they are scraping out of the internet, we are told that 46.5% of that data is in one language, English. German follows closely, Russian follows after, but then, at what point then will my Gikuyu language or my Kamba language from my lineage be onboarded onto this new development in what we are calling the fourth industrial revolution? As such, Mr. Speaker, what has been happening then is a lot of cultural appropriation. We know that in this country, there are artifacts that throughout history have been plucked out of our country and are in exhibition and being monetized in capitals abroad, in museums abroad, Mr. Speaker. The man-eating lions of Tsavo, two of them, male lions that did not have a mane, a spectacle to behold. When they were shot by a man called Peterson, they were then taken to some museums in Western capitals where they are to date. We are told by historians that one Koitalel Arap Samoei was decapitated, and his head and maybe the skull at that point was taken to museums abroad. Those museums do have entry fee. There are researchers who make big researches out of the data that is in those museums. However, is the Tsavo community benefiting from this appropriation of this culture? Are the Kipsigis benefiting from their leader being exhibited in a museum for now close to a century and some more years? So that, Mr. Speaker, then, the need for a comprehensive legislative framework that enables us to support the integration of culture, the cultural properties in this country, and cultural heritage becomes a priority, Mr. Speaker. Now, here is the critique, Mr. Speaker, that even as we are speaking to this bill as is, it is one devoid of specificities, Mr. Speaker. That in the format that it is and the style that it is big on cultural artifacts. However, culture is larger than artifacts. There are many elements of culture that are not covered in this bill as it exists. So much so that the option we have as a House is to either pass it as it is and then seek for places to amend later, or we might decide then, and in the third reading, Mr. Speaker, we might find a place in the clauses that exist or introduce new clauses where we are able to cover a wider definition of culture rather than zero in on just cultural artifacts. But now the bill has presented, Mr. Speaker, because it is big on cultural artifacts, then we can talk about issues to do with intellectual property. Mr. Speaker, whatever is covered here on intellectual property is a bit shallow. And my question was whether that shall be covered in subsequent or subsidiary legislation, maybe in regulation, or whether there shall be another bill that comes to take care of intellectual property. But finally, Mr. Speaker, I have to say that the essence is urgent. One, for the preservation of our culture and the protection of our culture. But secondly, Mr. Speaker, and most importantly, this House is a House that ratifies international treaties, international conventions. And so, Mr. Speaker, the treaties that we have ratified, some by UNESCO and many others to do with culture, have been given life and effect by us processing a bill that takes care of culture. The Constitution, Mr. Speaker, in Article 11, also is given effect by us passing this bill. And it is for that reason, Mr. Speaker, that I stand to support and seek to amend in the third reading. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to speak on this bill.
The Honorable Christine Ombaka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to what is very, very important in our lives. We are talking about a bill that deals with culture. And definition of culture. What is culture? It's a way of life as lived by a people at a particular time in history. It means that culture is our way of life. It's the language we speak, it's the song we sing, it's the food, the dress that we have, the food we eat, the sports, everything about our lives is culture. But it is as lived by a people at a particular time in history. It means that culture evolves. It is dynamic. It changes from time to time. The people of the past had their own culture. It moved on and changed on, and we acquired others, and we dropped other ways of culture, other ways of survival, and we moved on and acquired others. Just like